Welcome back. We're going to go ahead and start expanding on what we talked about last time. Remember last time we talked about you having a trust as the foundation of everything we're doing. But since we don't want anything in the trust that people can take, we're going to create a limited partnership to go ahead and hold all the assets we want, our real property, our timeshares, our investment accounts, any assets that you don't want anybody to touch, like your diamond ring or whatever it is. We want it in the limited partnership. And then we talked about making sure that the one little chink in the armor of the limited partnership is just the general partner. We want to make sure that is an Wyoming LLC to make sure that if somebody does come after you, they're not able to take what's in your limited partnership. They can't take anything in the trust because there's nothing there. And they only have the option of going with the LLC, which we're not going to keep very much in anyway. So now let's talk about the next thing we would do. If you're running a business, if you're actually doing something to bring money in, we're going to want to make sure that that business is going to be able to run the things that you're doing without owning the assets. So let's talk for a second about corporations again, okay? We talked a little bit about the corporation and how it can give us some asset protection with the corporate veil that goes around so that if something goes wrong in the corporation, they can't get out and come and take your house and your money and your dog, okay? And instead, we talked about that corporate veil protects your assets one way, keeps things from coming out of the corporation. But if you're the one that runs over that neighbor's dog and they're going to come and sue you, then we're going to go ahead, they can come and get that judgment, come and take your corporate stock if it's not held in a protected way, and come and take whatever's in the corporation. Basically take over your business. And that's how many people lose their businesses, is because somebody takes over, takes their stock because of a judgment they received, and then it's now their business. And most of the time they just close it down, take what's in there, sell it for what they can, and you're out of a business. They don't have anything left over except for a little bit of money to help take care of things. Not a great way to go. So let's talk about what we can do here. First of all, when we're doing our planning, we're going to decide what kind of corporation we're going to use to run this business. Is it going to be the S corporation that we can go ahead and sell in a few years and get better tax benefits for? Or is it going to be a C corporation that we're going to keep long term, be able to use a fiscal tax year and use its 15% tax benefit that you get from a C corporation? Well, most of the time, if we're doing asset protection planning, we want to protect the corporate stock. The rules right now under the corporations code basically say S corporation stock is not able to be held by another entity. It's very limited on who can own an S corporation. It's limited on how many shareholders there can be, what kind of shareholders they can be, and so that we're kind of limited on what we can do with an S corporation. Now you can sit there and say, well, I'm just not going to keep anything in the S corporation. So if they take my S corporation, they're basically taking the name, such as the name of our office is Beyer, Pongratz, and Rosen Law Offices. Well, if they came and took our name, then we'd now be the Pongratz, Rosen, and Beyer Law Offices. It doesn't really matter. We're in business the next day. We didn't lose anything because all of our business equipment, all of our furnishings, all of our computers, all the different things that we have are not owned by the corporation. They're owned by our limited partnerships, which we are leasing from the corporation. I'm going to show you how that works in just a moment to show you why that is beneficial. So the deal is if they came and got your corporation, yes, they get your name, they might get your telephone number, they probably be able to get a copy of your client list, but of course you're going to contact your clients and say, hey, we're not doing it over there anymore, we're doing it here, so we can do that. So that's one way, is just make sure that nothing is owned by the corporation that anybody wants to get. Yeah, there's going to be cleaning supplies and extra toilet tissue and things like that they're going to be owned by that, maybe some inventory, but that's it. And so they're not going to want to come against it. But most of the time, our corporations need to have more things. Things that will entice somebody to come and say, I'm going to come and take your business so I can take those things. We don't protect property in corporations. We don't protect excess monies in corporations. We don't protect anything that we don't want to lose in a corporation, whether C or S. But let's look and see what the difference is using a C corporation. If we had a C corporation instead of an S corporation, there's a rule that says that the C corporation stock can be owned by another entity. So let's look at this. What if you took your C corporation stock and instead of having it in your trust or in your name, we go ahead and put it into your limited partnership? So now the limited partnership owns your rental property, your home, owns your business property, owns your corporate stock, owns your investment accounts and any excess monies. All those things are now untouchable by any creditors because the limited partnership doesn't allow them in, right? And so now if somebody sues you and they say, I'm going to come and take your corporation, well, you don't even own the corporation anymore. It's owned by the FLP where it is untouchable. So we like using the corporation. So a lot of times we use the structure where we have the trust. It owns the limited partnership interest. The limited partnership is working with the general partner, the Wyoming LLC, which is just held out there. It's not held in our trust. It's not held in our LP. It's not held anywhere. And then we have a corporation that actually is able to run the business. So I'll give you an example where this works. Let's imagine that you have a care home, okay, and you want to be able to take care of special needs individuals. So if you go out and you buy this home, it's just going to work out just perfect for you, this home, and then you bring the individuals in. Well, where's the liability? Owning the home or working with special needs individuals? Special needs individuals is where the liability is. So if you have them all in one business, such as all of them in a corporation or something, somebody does something that harms one of those clients, those patients, the family comes and sues. They come and take everything in the business. They take the business itself, and they're going to take the property that you're doing the work in because it's all in the same business. Well, what if we do this? Let's say that we go ahead instead, have a business that runs a care home but doesn't own a care home. It leases the care home from an FLP, Family Limited Partnership. And so the deal is the limited partnership will own that care home property. It goes ahead and leases it to the corporation who runs the care home. Now what happens? Something goes wrong. Somebody did something to harm one of those patients. Then what happens is that, and it wasn't you, it was your client. And of course, remember, not your client, but your employee. And so you are responsible, the corporation is responsible for whatever that employee does. So what happens is they come and they sue, they get a judgment, they're able to take anything within the corporation, but they can't come and take the property because it's held in another entity. And then this other entity says, hey, you didn't pay your rent payment, we're canceling the contract, we're going to rent it to another care home company that you start the next day that is not liable for anything. So let me show you how this worked one time. I had a client, he had a liquor store, and at the liquor store was doing a great job, but there were kids that would come and meander around outside and just loiter outside of his liquor store. And he didn't like having those kids there, so he went to a kid in the neighborhood and he said, hey, why don't you come and work for me? And he was a corporation, and so it was working for the corporation, and just kind of shoo these kids away so they don't sit there and loiter outside of my liquor store. And so the kid says, sure, I'll do that. And so he comes and he shoos people away. Then one day, there's this other kid comes in. We'll call him Bully, okay? And so he goes up to the kid and says, I'm going to just stay out here. And the kid says, no, you can't do that. You have to go away. He says, this is a free country. You can't make me do anything. And so they kind of goes back and forth, and it gets a little bit more heated. And finally, the bully pulls out a knife. Now, this really happened. This is a real client, okay? And the kid pulls out his own knife. And so they're going to have a knife fight here. And so what happens, our kid is faster than the bully, and he stabs the bully. Doesn't hurt him too much, but he stabs him. What happens? A lawsuit comes out from the bully's family. And the bully's family says, hey, you stabbed our kid, and so you were liable. And who did they say was liable on the lawsuit? My client, who owned the corporation, my client as the president of the corporation, my client as the chairman of the corporation. They sued the kid, of course, because he did the stabbing. They sued the corporation. Okay, so that they got sued. They sued my client's limited partnership. They sued my client's wife. They sued my client's trust. And I'm sure if they knew the name of the dog, they would have sued the dog. Okay, so what do we know about the attorney for this bully's family? They have a great attorney. Okay. Now, so you sit there and say, just a minute, you just said they had a corporation, they had a limited partnership, they had a trust, and yet they're still getting sued. What's happening? Well, this is what happens, okay? Unfortunately, before coming and talking to me, they went and talked to their insurance, their liability broker, and he hired an attorney that answered on their behalf. And the answer was the very same one we learned on the first day of law school. It's not my fault. The other guy did it, okay? And that was the answer. It's not, the fault of the limited partnership. It's not the fault of the corporation. It's not the fault of the kid. It's not the fault of the owner. It's the other guy. And so my client comes to me and says, just a minute, what's going on here? I have a corporation. I did all these things to protect myself. Why aren't I protected? And I had to give him the bad news that the attorney that he used didn't respond properly to the lawsuit. What he should have done is filed what's called a demur. And the demur basically says, hey, you're suing the wrong guy. I'm not even part of this. I mean, I'm just working for the corporation also. Why should I have any involvement? And so the deal is, I said, he should have done a demur for your wife, for your trust, for your limited partnership, for yourself, in all those capacities. You shouldn't have even been part of the lawsuit anymore. But now that they've answered, he was part of the lawsuit. And so I called, while my client was right in the office, I called the attorney and I said, what you should have done on this is done a demur for all of these people. And the only people that have liability is the kid that stabbed him and the corporation that hired the kid that stabbed him. And he said, oh yeah, I remember hearing about that in law school. It was like, oh, great. And so then anyway, I showed him how to do a demur, what he needed to do. It was already too late in reality. The court got to do whatever he wanted, but we put a good argument together, told the judge that this is how he should have answered. The judge accepted it all. So his wife is out of there, the limited partnership is out of there, the trust was out of there. He was out of there as the director and officer, but they kept him in as a shareholder. Now, if he'd done the demur first, he would have been out there as a shareholder too. So the only people liable would have been the corporation and the kid. But now it's the corporation, the kid, and my client. And we settled it, and we got it taken care of, and so it was not a big deal. But when you do asset protection planning, it's giving us the ability to protect ourselves. It's a defense. You actually have to say, I've got a corporation, you can't sue me. I've got a limited partnership, you can't get in. You've got to take the affirmative defense to show this is why you can't come after me now. So just to let you know, by putting this all together, we can go ahead and make sure that they can't come after you. But you want to kind of talk to your attorney or us first before you turn it over, so that we can tell you what to tell to your attorney so that they can do things right. So that's kind of the next step, adding this corporation. Now, next time, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and show you how not only do we get some asset protection with what we're doing, I'm going to show you how to save some taxes. Okay? So we'll see you next time.